The most hated crypto rally could be starting today. And I do think that these are warning signs that this week is going to be absolutely massive for crypto. I'm going to outline a few things in this video. I'm going to be talking about a lot of things as well. But we love to see, this much green across the board when it comes to crypto. I'm going to be talking about a few factors that are really kind of leading to this most hated rally, but I'm also going to be talking a little bit more about XRP, specifically why XRP is not rallying right now, even though Bitcoin just broke over $90,000. So first and foremost, welcome to the channel, everyone. My name is Nick. For those that are new to the channel, hopefully by the end of this video, you do become a subscriber. Also, by the way, now is probably one of the best times to join the free Discord. There's going to be a link down in the description below. Join up. You won't regret it. There's over 11,500 members in there now currently. And it's just a great place to be at all times of the market. But with that being said, let's dive on in. So as you guys can see in terms of like the hour, the day, and even the weekly now on Crypto Bubbles, we are seeing some nice green. And you know what's crazy? On the last hour, we're starting to see a lot of altcoins making some big waves. And on the daily, we could really see those big waves. Some are up over 20+%. Some are up, even more than 20+% outside of the top 100. Even if we look at the top 500, some of these gains here, they might look small, but when we actually look at some of them, they're up 40+%, 20+%. And this is very good to see. Now, a lot of them, are they still bouncing off of the lows? 100%. But some of them are starting to make a lot more gains than others, which is very good to see. And even if we look at the CoinMarketCap 100 index, which is the top 100, cryptocurrencies, in the last 7 days, it's up significantly from the lows of roughly like 158 to already 171 plus. And if we actually look at some of the top gainers in the last 24-hour span, we could see that, Bitcoin is up over 90K plus. XRP still trailing a little bit, but there's a lot more gains happening here across the board. Even if we look at the top 24-hour gainers, we could see those gains across the board, which is very good to see. And I think that this is the start. I think that this is officially the beginning of one of the most hated rallies in crypto because, the last few weeks and technically the last few months have not been easy to endure. But what have I been outlining on this channel? I've been saying that the environment is still extremely ripe for bullish price action. We just have to get through the weather, right? We have to weather the storm, and what awaits us on the other side of that storm is going to be very positive gains. The sun is going to be shining. We're going to see clear blue skies ahead. And I think that that's exactly what we're seeing here. Now, in terms of XRP, like I said, there's a lot of altcoins that have yet to actually bounce back in a big way. XRP is one of them. This is the last monthly chart. This is the last 7 days. We're just chopping. We're just chopping sideways. Now, a lot of people want to know exactly when XRP is going to break out. When is XRP going to rally? Why is XRP not rallying? And I'm going to outline that in this video. So stay tuned for that. But first, let's actually start off with a few things. Now, number one, I'm not here to say, hey guys, guess what? I told you so. No, that's not what I do here. I don't care about being right. And when we think about what's really going on, I try to give you guys my opinion on what's going on around these markets and why, I personally believe that the markets are going to continue to be bullish. I could be wrong. I definitely could be. But I'm analyzing this from the perspective of, what's really going on behind all of the noise. Over the last few weeks, what have we been hearing? All the big banks are flipping bearish. They're telling you that we're in a recession. They're saying that there's like a 60% recession risk this year. You had Bank of America saying to, short the S&P. Like when we are starting to hear these heavy discussions, these heavy headlines from the big banks and even mainstream media starting to get bearish, it's typically signs that the market is not done yet. And also the dollar has been crashing, which is telling us that risk on assets are going to be extremely bullish. All we had to do was weather the storm. Now, I did say on the 17th that it feels like the market is now stabilizing and coiling up. Everyone expects the market to continue to chop or even worse, drop from here. I think that we are about to witness this market heat back up in a big way. No one expected the market to heat up the way it did in November the same way they do now. this next move will surprise a lot of people. And I do think that that's exactly what's going on here, especially with Bitcoin, breaking to 90K plus. This is actually very bullish to see, and I'm going to talk about why here in a second. Now, the big driver today was also stocks. Stocks opened up in a very, very bullish way. If we actually look at the daily, we can see the daily here as well. It's been so far a pretty good open for stocks. Now, we still have a lot of work to do when it comes to stocks. We'll definitely analyze that throughout the week. But so far, the S&P, the NASDAQ, and even the Dow have all had a very, very good open today. Now, the reason why a lot of the markets have been waking up in a big way is also trade deals. So like I said, with the tariff discussions and the trade war ongoing, we're going to eventually see trade deals being signed into action. And this was the big one that we actually got earlier today, which was VP, aka JD Vance, we have announces that America and India have officially finalized the terms of reference for the trade negotiation between the two countries. Check it out.
As many of you are aware, both of our governments are hard at work on a trade agreement built on shared priorities, like creating new jobs, building durable supply chains, and achieving prosperity for our workers. In our meeting yesterday, Prime Minister Modi and I made very good progress on all of those points. And we are especially excited to formally announce that America and India have officially finalized the terms of reference for the trade negotiation. I think this is a vital step. Thank you. I believe this is a vital step toward realizing President Trump's and Prime Minister Modi's vision, because it sets a roadmap toward a final deal between our nations. As many of you are aware,
so, yeah, I mean, listen, when we are starting to hear a lot more about these trade negotiations, like even recently, we've been hearing a lot about the European Union. We've also been hearing about Japan. Those were two very positive moves around those two with trade discussions and trade deals. And then we also heard about China, right? So the main thing that I'm really kind of looking at is China and the US signing a trade deal. Once we get that, that's a massive catalyst across the board. Now, do we need that in order for us to resume the bull market? No, but it would be a huge catalyst. And I did talk about how, Japan and the EU and even now India are flipping on, signing these deals, getting things to continue. I also think the same will happen with China. It's inevitable in my opinion. It's only a matter of time until we actually get that trade deal signed. And once we do, it's going to be huge for this entire space. Now, on top of this, I have been focused on gold. So as you guys can see on the daily, yes, gold is starting to sell off a little bit. This is what the 4-hour looks like. This is what the 12-hour looks like. And if we go to some of the lower time frames, this is what like the 1-hour looks like. Now, the thing about gold, and I'm not extremely bearish on gold, but the thing that I want to see gold doing for the next few months is cooling off and chopping sideways. Why? Why would we be expecting that? Well, because if we go all the way back to, let's just go back to 2020. All right. So this was back in 2020, gold rallied, right? Now, this is right around the same exact time as, COVID was hitting the market and, everyone was uncertain. It rallied all the way through into August, specifically about like the middle of August. After that, it sold off and then it just continued to chop and chop and chop. And it chopped for quite some time, actually, all the way into 2022. This is what I want to see now, because again, as we can really look at this, gold has been rallying for well over a year now. Since the beginning of 2024, right? Gold is actually now up over 76%. Gold back here was up over 78% before it started to chop sideways. This is why I'm actually watching to see gold chop from here while a lot more money rotates out of gold into things like stocks or even crypto. I think that crypto will be a main driver here because I also think that a lot of money will actually start to flow out of even stocks into crypto. A lot of people call this the great rotation. It definitely could be the next step. But I am expecting gold to start to sell off a little bit and chop. Why am I also expecting this? Is it just because of the past? No. It's also because Jim Cramer recently just said that gold will go higher. Now, yes, it's an inside joke. We already know about it, but it's true, right? This is a big, alert, and it's a signal that gold will probably start to sell off and chop sideways. Everyone that knows, but check it out.
The Chinese are starting to actually hold back on some private equity,
right. Yes.
Moving out of the dollar into gold, into Europe. Gold 3,400 first time today.
Gold is just every day you get it. Like Nico Eagle is like doubled. And you can buy Barrick over 20. It's still cheap, but I sit here and I just say, okay, how much of the bond's going to be down? I mean, I was comparing this to 2011 for a thing where it was down every day, but that was when the 10-year went to 1.7. Now we have like everything going wrong. We've got the 10-year going wrong. We've got big cap rolling over. We got the semis just awful. We got Coca-Cola being the only stock that
the Chinese.
So yeah, I mean, listen, when we are starting to hear a lot of these conversations, again, it's the mainstream media headlines. It's the same equivalent, idea there, right? If we're starting to hear Jim Cramer talking about how gold is going to go higher and, this, that, whatever, it's typically the opposite. So I'm watching gold. And so far, gold has been starting to weaken a little bit on the lower time frame. We have yet to actually lose structure just yet. But as you guys can see on the 1 hour, it is starting to get down back into that range where, it's starting to weaken a bit. And if we do lose about 3,400, that's going to be a big signal of a much larger shift on gold to the downside, supporting a much larger move to the upside on crypto. Now, I also did say just recently today that it won't be long now until everyone realizes how obvious it was that this market bottomed. Feels like September all over again. Now we just wait. And the reason why I said this is because of the Bitcoin structure that we are currently trading in. It's not identical, but it's very similar because we do have a low here followed by a lower low. Now, typically that's extremely bearish, right? When we start to see lows getting taken out and we continue even lower. But then I think about, the July lows and then the September lows, right? Now, this was a little bit more of a stretched out time period of trading on Bitcoin versus what we are currently in here. Because if we actually look at the time frame here from, the actual top to the, we'll just say from the start of the September impulse, right? This was about 182 days. Our current time frame here, and again, I'm not counting this wick here as being our top. I'm actually counting the December 16th, push to the upside as being our top because that's when most altcoins actually hit their local top so far. Currently, it's been about 126 days. A lot of people expected us to just continue to chop all the way into June before we even saw any significant move to the upside. Now, could this be, a fake out move to the upside where we, reject this next level of about 93.2K and we make another low to the downside? It definitely could happen, but I don't think that it's going to. And the reason why I say that is because of the overall structure that we're trading in now. What do I mean? Well, on the weekly, we already took out a lot of these highs. We now have a higher high. The first time that we started to make higher highs on the chart back in September was back in the end of September. And the second that we did this, all right, we took out the previous highs from August, the end of August. The second that we did this, the next sell-off was in a higher low territory. Which if we are going to sell off from like 93.2K because we already have a higher high in place, I do think that we'll probably retest resistance around 86.8K. Again, I think that this is a fair level in which we do, retest this, or if there is a fair value gap on like lower time frame structure that we could focus on, that will also be a good level. But the second that we do have that retest, I think that the next impulsive move will take out the previous higher highs. So the first higher high we already took out. The next higher high that we would have to break in order to create, an even more bullish structure is technically like around like 100K. We would have to break over $100,000 on the next impulsive move to kind of repeat the same pattern. Because again, on the weekly, the only last weekly closes here are from like February, and those are all the way up around like 96, 97K to almost 100K. So we're really kind of watching this. And we're focused on some of the, lower time frame structure trading as well. And it definitely does feel similar to September because we already have that bullish structure in place where we have the higher highs. And on the 3-day structure, by the way, it looks even better because, again, the highs are even higher. So far, our 3-day candle has found support right on resistance already. We're getting very close to the supply zone that we would be retesting, which is like right around 92 point almost 5K. If we could actually clear that level and start to find support around 92.4K, 92.5K, that's going to be extremely bullish. And on the 3-day, we have some highs up here around like 98.5K, but you know, that's the main target. And I do think that we hit 100K plus here very soon on Bitcoin if all goes well. If we start to see, you know, stocks bouncing heavy this week and we continue to see trade deals being signed in, I do think that Bitcoin breaks over 100K plus. Now, where does that leave XRP? Because again, everyone is worried about XRP. This is the current XRP setup. Again, we have those lower lows. We also have lower highs. We don't have higher highs just yet on this chart. We need to break, and I have arrows pointing to the highs that we want to break over. We need to break $2.25, which would also confirm a breakout above this trend line. The thing that I'm really kind of watching here is for us to clear $2.25, get a close over that on the 3-day, and then break over $2.59. If we can manage that, then our next target is that wick from the beginning of March, right around roughly $3 almost, which would also set us on a path to clearing the all-time highs. Well, if you want to call it all-time highs, it's basically the high on this chart that we currently have. A lot of people called it all-time highs, but I don't think that's an all-time high until we break over $3.84. You can call me an OG, whatever, it doesn't matter. I'm mainly going off of that target because that's been the target since going all the way back to like 2020. But you know, the main thing here is clearing $3.40 as well. And you know, if you want to go off of this wick, you could, or you could actually go off of these highs here because these are actual closes. So like $2.75. But I'm just kind of going off of the highs because these are where we will see major impulse moves to the upside once we do clear them. Now, what's going to support XRP moving to the upside, and why isn't XRP moving to the upside if, you know, Bitcoin is breaking out in a big way? Well, it's because all eyes are on Bitcoin. This is exactly what I have outlined in a lot of the previous updates when I'm talking about a big rally hitting this market and why I do believe that a big rally will hit this market. It's Bitcoin dominance. Bitcoin dominance is surging to the upside to support this Bitcoin move. And what's very bullish about this is that we are now reclaiming 90K. It's only a matter of time, in my opinion, until we do reclaim 100K. And once we do, I think that the next impulsive move on Bitcoin will happen. And that's where we start to see the big sell-off on Bitcoin dominance. This is going to be very similar to the sell-off from back in 2021. And we do not have a lot of time from the point where we do top on this chart to the point where we do bottom on this chart to get out of our altcoin bags. The main impulsive move and where most of the altcoin market did top at was right around this 133 to 154 day mark. This is where a lot of altcoins already topped. You could stretch it all the way into like November if you really wanted to. And even then, you know, we're talking about roughly 322 days. You do not have a lot of time to, you know, take profits throughout this entire cycle. About 3 to 6 months you have max from the point in which this chart actually tops out and starts to sell off in a big way. I do think that this chart is going to hit this topping point on this macro trend on the upside. And we're very close to it already. I mean, technically speaking, we are only about roughly less than 2% away from, you know, hitting that top trend line. And that would also signal that Bitcoin is about to continue even higher while this is dropping, which will support a much larger move on XRP and across the entire altcoin market. That's also where we watch for the altcoin season index to have that massive surge to the upside. Because so far, we have been in a Bitcoin season. We've technically been in a Bitcoin season this entire cycle so far. Because Bitcoin dominance has been surging since it hit its bottom back in August of 2022, which is crazy to say. So again, this is why I have stated many times on this channel that the biggest gains in this space have yet to actually hit, which is very exciting for those that are still here, that are kind of concerned about if they got in late or not. No, you're here at the perfect time, in my opinion. And I do think that the entire environment right now around crypto is extremely bullish. We're definitely going to be watching some key levels on these charts over the next couple days. But if we start to get some major candle closes here, especially on the weekly, right? We're about 5 days, 10 hours out from the weekly candle close. If we manage to close over $86,000, which looks pretty good right now, and if we can get a weekly close over 93.2K, that would be a huge signal and confirmation of the push to 100K plus. And it could happen this week. So we're definitely focused on that. I think that we are in for a very, very good year for crypto. Just like I've outlined many times over, we also have the FOMC meeting upcoming on the 7th. And on top of that, rate cuts, M2 money supply, increasing significantly. I do think that these markets are going to be swarmed with a lot of liquidity. I think that these trade deals are very good as well to see. And I just think that the entire environment around crypto and even stocks are just very bullish for the remainder of this year. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.